Introduction. When time softens. Christmas does something unusual to time. Days that once rushed now slow. People who rarely stop begin to pause. Streets glow not because they must, but because someone chose beauty over efficiency. Even those who claim not to care feel something shift inside them, a quiet pressure in the chest, a memory returning without warning, a sense that something important is near. Christmas does not force joy. It invites reflection. It reminds us that life is not only forward movement, but also remembrance. That meaning is not only built, but revisited. We gather not because everything is perfect, but because togetherness itself has become rare. This book is not a celebration in the loud sense. It is a companion for the quieter moments, when you sit by a window, when a song suddenly hurts and heals at the same time, when you realize that another year has passed and you are still learning how to live. Christmas reveals the truth gently. We are fragile, loving, unfinished beings, and that is enough. Chapter 1. The Light That Refuses to Disappear. An extended meditation. Light does not arrive at Christmas by accident. It arrives because, for centuries, human beings have known that when darkness deepens, something inside us instinctively reaches outward. Long before electricity, before calendars and commerce, people gathered around fire to survive the cold and the unknown. Light was protection, warmth, and reassurance, but it was also meaning. To light something in the dark is to say, I am still here. Christmas continues this ancient language. Modern culture often treats darkness as failure. We are taught to avoid it, eliminate it, or rush through it as quickly as possible. But winter teaches a different lesson. Darkness slows life. It quiets the world. It forces stillness. Christmas does not deny darkness, it enters it deliberately. The lights we hang are not there because everything is fine. They are there because we understand, perhaps subconsciously, that darkness needs companionship. Darkness is not only fear, it is reflection. Light comforts us because it does not argue with reality. A candle does not claim to be the sun. It does not overpower the night. It simply offers enough warmth to sit beside. Christmas light works the same way. It does not solve problems or erase pain. It offers presence. When people say Christmas feels comforting, they are often responding not to joy, but to permission to rest, to feel, to stop pretending that everything must be productive or resolved. Most people cannot explain why Christmas lights affect them emotionally. They just feel it. This is because symbols work beneath logic. Light bypasses explanation and speaks directly to memory and instinct. It reminds us of safety, of being watched over, of moments when someone stayed awake so we could sleep. Light at Christmas reconnects us to a primitive truth. Survival was once communal. We often believe hope must be new. Christmas teaches us otherwise. The same lights return each year. The same traditions repeat. The same songs play. At first glance, this looks like stagnation. In truth, it is continuity. Returning does not mean failing to move forward. It means choosing to anchor ourselves in something stable while the world changes around us. Hope does not always move ahead. Sometimes it circles back and says, remember who you are. Light triggers memory. A string of lights can recall childhood windows. A candle can awaken a memory of someone who once lit it carefully, as if the act mattered. Christmas light does not exist only in the present, it reaches backward. Memory is not nostalgia alone. It is identity. The light we recognize today is connected to the people we were when we first noticed it. In a loud, demanding world, Christmas light is an act of rebellion. It refuses urgency. It refuses competition. It refuses explanation. It exists simply to be seen. There is courage in gentleness. Choosing softness in a harsh world is not weakness, it is resistance. Not all light is visible. Some of it appears as patience when we want to rush. Some of it shows up as kindness when we could withdraw. Some of it exists as hope we cannot explain but refuse to abandon. Christmas reminds us that light is not only something we hang, it is something we practice. There are moments when the lights feel insufficient, when grief is heavy, when loneliness is sharp, when hope feels thin. Christmas does not ask us to pretend otherwise. It allows light to be small. A candle is enough. One breath is enough. Light does not need to be strong to matter. It only needs to exist. Perhaps the most powerful role of light is not illumination, but witnessing. Light stays. It sees. It does not turn away. At Christmas, light bears witness to our lives as they are, unfinished, complicated, sincere. And that, often, is what heals us. Chapter 2: The Silence Between the Bells. If light is what we see at Christmas, silence is what we feel. Beneath the music, beneath the conversations, beneath the rituals repeated year after year, there exists a quieter layer of the season. One that speaks not through sound, but through pauses. Christmas is often described as noisy, yet its deepest moments arrive in stillness. We tend to misunderstand silence. We assume it means absence, of people, of meaning, of connection. But silence is not empty. It is uncluttered. Silence is where meaning waits. At Christmas, silence appears in unexpected places. Early mornings before the house wakes, late nights after the lights are turned off, moments when laughter fades and memory takes its place. These silences are not gaps, they are containers. They hold what words cannot. Time behaves differently in winter. Days are shorter, nights linger, movement feels heavier, nature itself seems to pause. Christmas arrives not to interrupt this rhythm, but to align with it. The season invites slowness because slowness is the only speed at which reflection becomes possible. When we slow down, we hear ourselves again. Bells are symbols of announcement. They mark beginnings, celebrations, transitions. But what gives bells their power is not the sound, it is the silence that follows. The echo. Christmas bells ring loudly, but their meaning settles in afterward, when the vibration fades and leaves a stillness behind. It is in that stillness that we feel what the celebration truly meant. Silence often makes us uncomfortable because it removes distraction. In silence, emotions surface without warning. Joy, regret, gratitude, grief, all coexist. Christmas does not separate them. It allows them to sit together. This is why the season can feel both beautiful and heavy at the same time. Silence does not judge what appears. It only allows it. For many, Christmas silence reveals loneliness more clearly than any other time of year. When expectations are high, absence becomes louder. Empty chairs, unanswered messages, names no longer spoken, silence magnifies them. But loneliness is not proof of failure. It is proof of longing. To feel lonely is to still desire connection, and that, in itself, is a form of hope. Across cultures and faiths, silence has always been the doorway to the sacred. Prayer begins in silence. Meditation requires it. Reflection depends on it. Christmas silence is not accidental. It mirrors the humility of beginnings. A quiet birth, an unnoticed moment, a presence that did not announce itself loudly yet changed everything. Sacred things often arrive softly. In a world that demands reaction, silence is courageous. To remain silent is to resist immediacy. To pause is to choose depth over performance. Christmas offers permission to step back from constant expression and instead become receptive, to listen rather than explain, to feel rather than fix. This is not withdrawal, it is attention. Silence heals not by erasing pain, but by creating space around it. In silence, pain is no longer rushed or minimized. It is allowed to exist without explanation. Healing often begins when we stop asking pain to justify itself. Some of the most intimate moments of Christmas are shared without words. Sitting beside someone, walking together under lights, holding a cup of warmth in both hands. These silences are not awkward, they are aligned. They say, I am here. You are here. That is enough. Chapter 3: Gathering and Belonging. Christmas gathers people together, but belonging is something else entirely. You can sit at a full table and still feel alone. You can be far away and feel deeply connected. Belonging is not about proximity. It is about recognition. Gatherings begin with invitations, but belonging begins with being noticed. At many Christmas tables, roles are assigned unconsciously. The listener, the storyteller, the quiet one, the strong one. We show up wearing familiar versions of ourselves, often without question. Belonging happens when someone sees beyond the role and recognizes the person underneath. It is the difference between presence and participation. Humans gather not because it is efficient, but because it is essential. Gathering affirms existence. It says, "You matter enough to take up space with me." In winter, when the world feels distant and closed, gathering becomes an act of defiance against isolation. It is a declaration that connection still matters. For many, gatherings carry anxiety. Will I be understood? Will I be judged? Will I disappear in the crowd? Belonging requires vulnerability, and vulnerability always carries risk. This is why some people dread gatherings even while longing for connection. Family is often our first experience of belonging, and our first experience of not belonging. Families hold history, stories repeat themselves, old wounds resurface, love and misunderstanding coexist. At Christmas, family dynamics intensify because memory is present at the table alongside the living. Belonging in family is not about perfection. It is about endurance. Not all belonging is inherited. Some of the deepest connections come from people we choose, friends, mentors, partners, strangers who feel familiar. Chosen belonging is powerful because it is intentional. It says, "I choose you not because I must, but because I recognize myself in you." Ritual creates rhythm. Shared meals, repeated traditions, familiar songs. These are not meaningless habits. They create continuity across time. Ritual tells us, "You were here before. You are here now. You will be here again." This continuity anchors belonging. Belonging is not static. It shifts with change, conflict, growth. At Christmas, this fragility becomes visible. People change. Chairs move. Traditions evolve. Belonging survives not by staying the same, but by adapting. Every gathering has an invisible boundary. Belonging expands when someone intentionally widens that boundary. The newcomer, the quiet guest, the person who feels unsure where they fit. True belonging is generous. It makes room. External belonging matters, but internal belonging sustains. When you feel at home within yourself, gatherings become less threatening. You no longer need approval to feel real. Belonging to yourself is the foundation upon which all other belonging rests. Chapter 4: Giving, Receiving, and the Weight of Meaning. Giving is often celebrated, receiving is rarely understood. At Christmas, gifts move from hand to hand, wrapped in paper and expectation. Yet beneath the exchange lies something heavier than objects: meaning. Every gift carries a message, spoken or unspoken, and every act of receiving asks a quiet question: am I worthy of this? We give to express what words cannot. A gift says, "I thought of you when you were not here." It bridges distance. It makes presence tangible. But giving is not always pure. Sometimes it is shaped by obligation, fear, or the desire to be seen as generous. True giving is not loud. It does not demand gratitude. It flows outward because something inside is already full. Modern giving often carries pressure. How much is enough? Is this gift meaningful enough? Will it be compared? When giving becomes performance, joy disappears. The act shifts from connection to validation. Christmas reminds us that meaning is not proportional to cost. A moment of attention can outweigh an expensive object. A sincere word can carry more weight than a wrapped box. Many people struggle more with receiving than giving. Receiving requires vulnerability. It asks us to accept care without control. Some refuse gifts because they fear dependence. Others minimize what they receive because they do not believe they deserve it. Learning to receive is learning to allow love without conditions. The most meaningful gifts are often invisible. Time, presence, listening without interruption, forgiveness offered without demand. These gifts do not expire. They shape memory. At Christmas, these are the gifts people remember long after objects fade. Giving carries responsibility. A gift given carelessly can create burden instead of joy. A gift given without understanding can miss its meaning. True giving listens before it acts. It asks, what does this person truly need, not what do I want to give? Guilt poisons receiving. When we feel unworthy, gifts become uncomfortable reminders of perceived inadequacy. Receiving with grace is not arrogance. It is humility. It says, I accept this not because I am perfect, but because connection allows imperfection. Sometimes gifts come with strings. Expectation of return, expectation of loyalty, expectation of gratitude beyond sincerity. These gifts feel heavy because they are not free. True giving releases expectation. True receiving honors freedom. Often forgotten is the hardest form of giving, self-compassion. At Christmas, many give endlessly to others while neglecting their own needs. Giving to oneself is not selfish. It is sustainable love. Rest is a gift. Boundaries are gifts. Kindness toward oneself is a gift that keeps giving. Objects pass through hands. Meaning settles in the heart. The true weight of Christmas is not what is exchanged, but what is understood. That love, when freely given and humbly received, becomes lighter, not heavier. Chapter 5, Hope, Renewal, and the Quiet Promise of Tomorrow. Hope rarely arrives as certainty. It comes as a whisper, fragile, almost unnoticeable, yet persistent. At Christmas, hope does not shout. It rests quietly in moments. A shared silence, a softened heart, a breath taken after a long year. Hope is not the absence of darkness. It is the refusal to believe darkness is final. Hope is not optimism. Optimism assumes outcomes. Hope accepts uncertainty. Hope says, I do not know how this will unfold, but I remain open. It survives not because circumstances improve, but because the human spirit continues to lean forward. Renewal rarely looks dramatic. It happens quietly, in subtle shifts of perspective, in the softening of resentment, in the willingness to try again. At Christmas, renewal is less about change and more about return, returning to what matters, to what feels true, to what has been forgotten but not lost. The calendar turns, but life does not reset. We carry unfinished stories, unresolved grief, unfulfilled hopes. Yet the promise of tomorrow is not that everything will be new, but that we are still here to continue. Continuity is its own form of grace. Some carry wounds that Christmas intensifies. Unmet expectations, absent loved ones, promises that never arrived. Hope after disappointment is quieter, humbler. It does not dream loudly. It survives cautiously. Yet this kind of hope is strong, because it has endured. Beginning again is not naive. It is an act of courage. To hope again after loss, to trust again after betrayal, to open again after disappointment, these are quiet victories. Christmas does not demand joy. It invites willingness. Forgiveness is renewal without erasure. It does not forget pain. It releases control over it. Forgiveness lightens the future by loosening the grip of the past. At Christmas, forgiveness is not a requirement, it is an offering to oneself. The future does not need to be conquered. It asks only to be met with presence. The quiet promise of tomorrow is not perfection, but participation. To be awake, to remain open, to continue loving despite uncertainty. Hope multiplies when shared. A kind word, a patient gesture, a moment of understanding, these small acts ripple outward. Hope is contagious when it is lived rather than preached. Christmas ends, but its meaning does not. The lights dim, the gatherings disperse, the season passes. What remains is what we choose to carry forward: patience, generosity, belonging, forgiveness, hope. The light does not belong to the season. It belongs to those who continue. That's all, folks. Hope you are enjoyed it, and this was all about Merry Christmas, and I'm going to see you soon in February, 'cause I have a lot of exams in January, and Merry Christmas for everyone who watched till end. Goodbye.